Taking a bit of a break from our winter athletes to get back into some summer athletes and more importantly, the Paralympics. Because I always say every time we have a Paralympian on this show, we don't do this enough and we need to have more Paralympians on this show. And I'm excited today to learn more about the journey of our guest, a multiple oceanic champion, gold medalist in the sport of paratriathlon, a world championship bronze medalist in the sport of paratriathlon, and made his Paralympic debut at the Paris Paralympics, where he finished 8th in the PTS4 paratriathlon. I think I get that correctly. Well, he can correct me the more and more I go along with this. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show, Jeremy Peacock. Jeremy, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium.
Thanks very much, Ben. That's quite an introduction, so thank you very much. But no, great to be on the potty today, and yeah, looking forward to the chat we're going to have.
I'm looking forward to chatting with you and learning about your career, mate, because I love sort of reading about your journey through the sport. I love reading through everything that you've gotten to where you are at today. But before I get to any of that, the biggest question I need to ask is, have you recovered from swimming in the Seine? Because you are the first guest we've had on this podcast who swam in the Seine, and that's the first thing I need to ask you right now, Jeremy. Are you okay? Have you recovered?
Well, I did lose my third arm, so yes.
Right.
No.
Okay.
No, completely fine, mate. Look, I think, we'll probably get into it, but I reckon I swam in worse. So yeah, no, it wasn't too bad in the end.
That's good.
Very, very cool experience. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely cover that when we get to Paris. But your journey, so unique in your sport. I mean, we had Anu Francis and Hannah McDougall on the show sort of in the lead up to Paris, and they had very unique journeys in the sport of paratriathlon, and yours too, because you sort of started later in life when it came to paratriathlon for a variety of reasons. So tell us sort of what drew you to paratriathlon, and I guess give us a brief overview about that journey, that kind of why you started so late in the sport.
Where do I start? So I guess my whole background is that I've got cerebral palsy from a 3-month premature birth. So yeah, I was born 26 weeks, I think it was. I was effectively the size of a Barbie doll, and really only given 10% chance of survival on my first night.
Wow.
So it's quite fortunate to be where I am right now. But yeah, I guess obviously growing up, staying 3 months in intensive care, it puts a bit of a stint to your start of your life. And look, everything looked pretty good up until I was probably starting to learn to walk. When my mum sort of noticed that I was really favouring my right side. And look, this is back in, the early 90s. So medicine definitely hasn't improved a lot since then. And it's great to see where research and investment's going into cerebral palsy. But, back then, the pediatrics and the doctors were like, oh, no, it's fine. He's just favouring it. There's nothing to worry about. It was really only through those kind of periods that they actually found out that I had CP. I think it wasn't only until I was about maybe 5 or 6 that they actually realised, oh, no, he's actually got cerebral palsy. So I think, look, going through my early years, I just wanted to be a normal kid. I didn't really want to disclose the fact that I had cerebral palsy. Fortunately enough for me as well, I can hide it reasonably okay. Cerebral palsy can have varying impacts to everyone who's got the condition. You could be wheelchair bound, or you could be, I guess, like myself, who can present as an able-bodied human. But how it impacts me is my left-hand side, and predominantly from the waist down. So my left leg is, I guess you could say, deformed, or it's not as fully grown as my right leg. My wife likes to comment that I've got my adult leg and my baby leg. And so what it means is, my muscles just haven't really developed. So they're much weaker than my right. And that affects my walk and my gait and I guess just the power output I can present on the left-hand side. It also impacts my balance as well. So I can balance completely fine my right, but my left I really struggle with. So I need some adaptations, or at least just even just a wall to hold on to if I'm balancing. But yeah, look, I mean, going through life, going through early childhood, as I said, I never really wanted to talk about it or disclose the fact that I had it because, again, I just wanted to be a normal kid. I didn't want to be known as that, that disabled kid, because I really didn't see myself as being, and I don't like using the word disabled, I more like using the word impaired. So I didn't really see myself as being impaired, because I could still do everything that everyone else was doing. Maybe not to the same kind of ability, but yeah, I could still walk, I could still run, could still climb over things. As a kid, I could still play on the playground. It was all fine. So I didn't really pursue that, and that lasted a long time, mate. That lasted all the way up until I was probably 28, 29.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's only really been a few years.
I was going to say, because you're not that far removed from being
No,
28. You're still
no.
very close to that age.
So it's probably about, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That I came to the realization, or I don't know, I call it my core life crisis.
We all have them. It's fine.
My resolution that, hey, I've actually got cerebral palsy. I actually want to do something with this. So yeah, I think it took me, it firstly had to be myself who actually believed that I had the condition. And I mean, obviously, look, I always knew I had cerebral palsy. It wasn't as if one day, I've actually got this. Like, I knew what it was, knew how it impacted me, but I never wanted to voice it. So it was only until I could actually be comfortable in voicing it and talking about it, that I could then look at opening the pathways into I guess, para sport. Now, so how did I come onto triathlon? Well, growing up, I was a runner by trade. I think you look up to your idols, and my idol was my dad, and my dad was a professional ultramarathon runner. So back in the day, he was running stupid distances, absolutely stupid, but doing very well at it. Was seventh in the world, I think, at one point, in the 100K world record world race. So
100K. Wow.
Yeah, 100K. He ran. I don't know if they still do it, but I know, back, I think late 90s, 89 or 1990, I think he ran. They did 100K world champs in Belgium, and they apparently ran through the night. Huh. And he's got all these great stories of running through these beer gardens and pubs and at 2 a.m. and people are going nuts. But
wow.
He came seventh. I'll have to look it up. I think it was seventh in 1990 100K world champs. So, I came from that kind of a pedigree, and I just remember as a kid just watching all of his comrades marathon running videos and just wanting to be like him. So yeah, I grew up a runner all throughout high school, primary school, high school. Ran for the school at Darling Downs and local at the GPS cross country championships and athletics and whatnot. But yeah, I think it was obvious. I look back now, obviously hindsight's great. I look back now and I look and I go, geez, I really wasn't at the same competition level as a normal 16-year-old. I was definitely restricted by my condition. But I think what then turned me away from running for a bit was I was just getting injured too often. I'd be, stress fracture, tendonitis, all this kind of, all these different kind of issues, all specifically to my left leg, ironically. And I think I've done everything that you could possibly do in running form, from knee, hip, ankle, calf, everything in that period of time. So it sort of turned me off running, and throughout, so my early adolescence, I moved to cycling, mainly because, again, my dad had done the same. His days of running had just compounded his body, and his body was really not loving life. So he turned to cycling, and he said, hey, you should give this a go. So gave it a go, fell in love with the sport. I'd always watched the Tour de France, but until I started riding, really fell in love with cycling and thought, this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be a cyclist. And then it wasn't until the group I was riding with, a couple of them or a few of them were doing, the half Ironmans and the Ironmans and whatnot. And they saw me run at a park run in winter. I think I just ran. A few of them were going to a park run. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll come and have a run." Haven't run in like 8 years, but I'll have a run.
Why not?
And punched out a reasonably okay time. And they're like, "Geez, you should come and do a triathlon." I was like, "Hell no! Like, why the hell would I want to do 3 sports? It sounds like the worst thing on earth. Like, no way." But they twisted my arm, and I went down and did like one of like the really mini enticer kind of triathlon things. And I mean, that's the rest is history. Absolutely fell in love with what triathlon is, the community, the sport, just everything about it. Just fell in love with it, and that then turned me into the triathlete I am today. I mean, again, at this stage, I was still very much repressing or suppressing the concept of me having cerebral palsy. No one in my really cycling community knew, only maybe a couple. So I was just being an everyday weekend warrior, doing the half Ironmans, do a couple of half Ironmans and just the local 2XU series. But then, it wasn't until I had all this epiphany that I turned to para sport and para triathlon. Tried out for both paracycling and paratriathlon, and it was just the way the cards fell that paratriathlon was, I guess, the better or the better outcome for myself. So fell into paratriathlon and got classified in 2019. Can't remember. It's either 2019 or 2020. But my first international race was meant to be the weekend we all got locked down from COVID.
Damn.
So, I was all hyped to start, racing internationally, racing for Australia, ironically over in the US. And got the notification that was cancelled because of COVID. And so then sat on the sidelines for 2 years waiting to go. And then, my first season, I guess, or international season, repping Australia started in 2022.
Which you did all right in, which we'll get to, of course. Not bad in that period.
So,
I love hearing that journey though, Jeremy, because I feel it's like any triathlete, paratriathlete, or anybody in multi-sport events. Like we're big advocates for triathlon, for modern pentathlon, Nordic combined. Like I love events that incorporate multiple events. But there's always like you're always doing one, you're always doing two. And there's always that third, or in modern pentathlon, probably more than that, like where you've got to add to it. So I find that fascinating. I mean, I think it was Anu from memory who was talking about the swimming leg was the last one that she had to add to. Do you remember then that third leg of like having to add the swimming to it? Because swimming's quite different to cycling and running, of course. So I don't know how your ability was at swimming in that point, and what was that like when all of a sudden triathlon, as you said, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. But then you got to add the swimming element to the other two that you already know.
Yeah. Look, I think every triathlete has one leg that they don't favour the most. And for me, it's obviously swimming. Look, cycling and running, I mean, they come naturally to me, I guess you could say. I can just distinctly remember swimming, in school, we always had to do the swimming carnival. We always had to do at least one event. And they're like, Peacock, come on, you got to do something. I'm like, okay, I'll do the 50 free. And then it's like, straight back in the grandstand. I don't want to bar a bit.
I did the doggy paddle. We had doggy paddle at ours. That's what I did. Yeah.
I can remember for some reason, I thought doing the 100-meter backstroke at one point. I think my final year, I thought that was going to be a good idea. That was not a good idea. So, look, swimming was definitely not the sport that I look forward to on the sporting calendar in Australia. Which I mean, as an Australian, it probably doesn't bode well, given we are a country of swimmers. Look, I could swim. Don't get me wrong. Could swim. Could help myself, but to do it competitively, God no. Swimming for me was definitely also the last one to fit the piece of the puzzle of the triathlon. And yeah, I basically as an adult had to reteach myself how to swim properly, I guess. As I said, I could competently swim a couple of lengths of the pool. But to do it properly and, to be able to race it, I was a very, very long way off. And yeah, I mean, I've got stories of when I first joined, I guess, my professional triathlon squad, rocking up and going, yeah, no, I do 2 swim sessions a week and I do 2K per session. And yeah, my coach now just says, I just internally laughed at that when you rocked up thinking you were okay. I was not okay. So I've had to, spend quite a number of years and still am reteaching myself the real technical side of swimming. Because I think running and cycling, yes, there's a technicality to it, but it's not. It's really more about your engine and how much you can push your body. Whereas swimming, yes, you got to push yourself, but unless you've got the right technique, you're going nowhere pretty fast. So yeah, swimming, it's a love-hate relationship, but it's definitely the one part of my triathlon that's is the one that's continuing to evolve. The more and more I get to learn about swimming technique, because I just wasn't doing that when I was 6 years old or 7 years old.
That journey, I mean, it's so fascinating to kind of hear what you're talking about there about sort of, I guess, accepting that you had a condition that maybe prevented you from competing to your full extent, because, I mean, you were doing okay, I guess. Like I saw a post you had where I think you were still finishing 4th in cross-country events when you were sort of going up against able-bodied competitors. So it's not like, you were 50 laps behind and kind of, going, why is this happening? You were still doing pretty well, if you ask me. I would dream to finish 4th in a cross-country event, Jeremy. It's never going to happen. But like that sort of mental acceptance that this is something that, you can switch towards, that you're going up against people sort of similar to you and things like that. Like, do you work, when you say you work through that, is that entirely on your own? Is it through sports psychs? Like how do you kind of get to that level where all of a sudden it is a case of, yeah, okay, I can go to the Paralympics and what condition I have can enable me to go in a different path than what I am right now?
Yeah, I think at that time when I was going through those different emotions and feelings and thoughts, it was a lot just internally through me. I don't know. I can't really say there was a number of different things. It always felt like it was a switch that just flipped on inside of me. Just this, I don't know, this realization that, hey, I'm not actually competing against people, as you say, like that have got the same, I guess, impairments as myself or same ability as myself. So I think, I can't say if there was a distinctive time, but there was just something that just happened inside of me that just went, let's go and explore other options. And so, got talking to a number of different para athletes. Fortunately, I rode in one of the cycling groups I rode with one being, and she's been one on your podcast, Hannah McDougall. Actually, I'd been riding with her for like 3-4 years or a couple of years and never actually once asked about how her journey and how she got there. And then again, I think it's because internally, I almost told myself that I'm not that. I'm not a para athlete. So I never really wanted to learn more about para athletes or para in general. But I think it was this, again, after I changed my mindset about who I was and how I compete in sport, that all changed. And I look back now, I wish I had been more open to the thought of para sport earlier in my life. Who knows what would have happened if, one of my sports teachers came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, have you thought about para athletics or para sport? Again, hindsight's great. I think back to early 2000s. Let's be honest, early 2000s parasport wasn't as heavily publicized as it is now. Even just disability wasn't. So it wasn't in our mainstream to talk about. And I put myself in, my shoes back then. I would have never have thought to have gone down this route. So I think, one, yes, it was all internally generated from myself. But two, I think it's also going to come from the trailblazers of parasport that are now making sure parasport and disability is actually a topic of discussion in general society. So I'm thinking of, your Dylan Alcott's, your Kurt Fernleys, these guys have been trailblazers in our sport, or sorry, not my sport, but in disability circles. So I think those two things were the things that started to make me think, okay, let's actually look into this parasport. Actually could be something that might be good for you. And yeah, as I said, I'm glad I did. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see what could have happened if it was a little bit earlier in my life. But I'm not going to change what's happened, because that makes you who you are, and it provides more to the journey and the story of who you are.
I'm glad you brought up Dylan and Kirk, because I was going to ask you about them, because I know that they're two obviously big idols of yours. And for maybe our non-Australian listeners who aren't too familiar with them, I mean, not only trailblazers in the disability sector, just for sports in general in Australia, and two of the most household names you can get for any athlete in the entire country. They're superstars, obviously. Dylan went on to, Australian of the Year only a couple of years ago, and he's now in like Rocky Horror Picture Show and all these kind of things, like doing great things out there for so many different things. But do you like, this is probably going to a question I was going to ask towards the end, but I'm going to ask it now because we're sort of on the topic. But like, do you sort of look through those experiences, that realization that you have and kind of where you are now, and use that maybe to young athletes who maybe are struggling similar to what you are? Maybe they're not accepting that they've got an ability that is different to some other people, but they're still incredibly capable of being an elite athlete at an elite level, whether that, maybe means that transition and acceptance that gets them into parasports.
Yeah. 100%. I think if there's anything I can, I guess, leave as my legacy, whatever that may be, but I think I just want to be inspiring the young kids that are like me, who maybe don't see themselves as being disabled, but know that there is this pathway that could potentially take them to great things. And not saying that, sport is the be all and end all. You can be great at whatever you want to be in life, but I think, the kids that I've met, they've got very similar conditions to me. I've met kids that, at both 6 and 16, I've met kids that are like splitting images of what I was like when I was that kid. And they're actually really keen they're completely open and being, telling their friends that they've got CP, and, they actually want to be an advocate for it. I've got a story of, I found out that there was, a young bloke who has got CP, and his class were writing me letters for the Paralympics, which was absolutely lovely. But there was this one young kid who, again, had never really discussed cerebral palsy with his friends, but it wasn't until seeing me that he actually then got up in front of his class and told his friends that he's got CP, and that
Wow.
this is his AFO and this is how it impacts him. And I received that message about 3 weeks out from the games. I was over in Spain by myself, and I just started crying, because I'm like, this kid's 5, 6 years old, and if that means I've changed his perception on the impairment that he's got, then like I've done my job. So I think that for me was a big one, because I didn't see anyone of my impairment, my type of impairment, in modern society. So I think there was a little bit of that um, sort of outsider syndrome, or you just don't fit in because you don't see anyone else like you. So to be that person that these kids can then say, oh, well, yeah, he's got exactly the same condition as me. I can still walk, I can still run, but look at what he's doing. Then, I'd be pretty happy with that because that's something pretty special, I think.
Yeah, what a great story. And I have a feeling that we'll probably get him on this podcast in about 10, 20 years. He'll be a Paralympian himself too,
20
based
years
on
time,
that.
I reckon.
You know?
I reckon wherever the next Paralympics are going to be in, 2044?
Yeah. Fantastic. What a great story. Yeah. I mean, it's those levels, though, that obviously that inspiration that, you never know when you can change someone's life based on that. And we love hearing kind of all that. And the thing, too, it's that I think a lot of people, and myself included really until the last 12 months, didn't really realize is how new of a Paralympic sport paratriathlon is. I mean, triathlon itself is a fairly new modern sport. That was only included in Sydney in 2000, but in the Paralympics 2016 in Rio. So this is still very fresh. This is only the third Olympics we've had paratriathlon in. So when you're sort of then switching and this is your sport that you're doing, I can imagine that at that point it's still very fresh. Like, I mean, we talked to Anu and Hannah about this, but like, were you finding it sort of interesting getting into a sport that in a way is kind of new in some sense of the form, and like kind of how has it changed sort of when you first started to where we're at now in paratriathlon?
I mean, to your point, I mean, it is still fairly new, and I think I've only been to one, so I can only really speak on behalf of that one games, but watching Tokyo and Rio, I mean, like you look at the Rio paratriathlon race, very different in the way that the athletes were classified into their corresponding races, the organization around it, and then you fast forward to today. I mean, even if I look at the last 2 years, and I specifically talk about my category, the PTS4 category, it has changed drastically in terms of times and level of ability that's needed to be actually competing well at the top end of the pointy end of the race, and that's just in the last 2 years. So,
wow,
who knows where our sport's going to go in 2, 4, 8 years time? Come Brisbane, but I think it's got a really exciting future on its hands. I mean, there's talk of that in LA in 2028, there'll be the mixed paratriathlon relay. So like what they have with the mixed triathlon relay, we'll also be having a mixed paratriathlon relay.
Fantastic.
So I'm really hoping that
great event. We love it in the Olympics. I love seeing the Paralympics.
And I think the mixed paratriathlon relays actually got a really good opportunity to really, really showcase how the different impairments work in paratriathlon. Because I mean, I don't know if you can remember the paratriathlon at Paris, but there was a lot going on on the day. Like, there's a lot of different races going on at the one time. And look, that's not new to us at all. Like, that is every single race on the world triathlon scene for us. We'll have 4, 5, 6 different races going on at the same time, and it's an absolute nightmare to try and figure out what's going on and what. But the mixed paratriathlon relay could be really, really beneficial, because then it's just the one race, but it will give the commentators and the public a really good chance to see and understand, okay, well, here come the wheelchair athletes, and this is how their impairment affects them. But here we go, we're going to be, and then like the next leg would be, okay, well, maybe you've got a vision impaired person up against someone like me. So then they can really talk about the differences of how each athlete, responds to the triathlon. So I think, our sport, whilst it is fairly new in the sense of para sport and at the Paralympics, I think it's got a really, really strong and exciting future ahead. So, hopefully I can be there in 4 years' time to be part of that journey. But
you'll be there. You'll be there.
It's very exciting to see where it's heading. especially with more investments being pumped into the Paralympics Australia now. So hopefully, that investment trickles down to triathlon to really just innovate and make the sport continue to improve.
I'm going to say you're there purely on the fact that if people are listening to this, go to our video version of this interview to see Jeremy's great little plaque sort of framed thing he's got behind him. There's plenty of space for another one of those next to that. So
just down below.
Yeah, exactly. You got to fill that wall. But I mean, we constantly talk to a lot of our Aussie guests on this podcast about that really unique period we're in right now for Olympics and Paralympics, with a home Olympics 8 years away. That the fact is that, similar to what we saw in Sydney, there's that expectation of extra funding. We've already seen extra funding announced already so far out from the games because, for all of us who are alive and remember Sydney, we remember that glory and how great it was in both the Olympics and Paralympics. And when we had Melissa Carlton on fairly recently, and she talked to us about how amazing that experience was as an athlete in Sydney. And I remember that vividly as a 13-year-old watching the Paralympics directly after the Olympics, and just that vibe and that feeling and the success that we had. And we want that again for Brisbane. We want that. So it's kind of that uniqueness that, I guess, does that bring excitement and hope for you as an athlete that we are in a decent period, or do we still have a bit more work to do potentially between now and 2032 to get to that level we had in Sydney?
I think we're definitely going in the right direction, is what I would say to that question. Are we in a good position right now? Potentially. I think the next 4 years is critical, though. If we as a sports triathlon are not climbing the ranks in the next 4 years, then those last 4 years towards Brisbane is going to be a lot to hope. But I think, look, generally right now, I mean, if you look at the para triathlon squad, we had some fairly decent performances. I mean, obviously Lauren Parker just sweeping up on everything. Everything she touches, she's turned to gold. So Lauren's fantastic athlete. And then the rest of the squad, whilst yes, we didn't get any other podiums, there were some very, very good results.
All top 10s basically, with even the two that didn't finish top 10 were still 11th and 13th. So I mean, still great results.
I mean, and some of those results were very good results in very, very competitive fields as well. So I think there's a very bright future for us, and not just in paratriathlon, but I think just in para sport overall. Our swimmers are killing it. We've got some very good up and coming athletics. Our rowers are doing really well as well. So I think we've got some really good momentum at the moment, and it's definitely going the right way. It's just hopefully, we continue that going forward. But it's very exciting. Like, you hear all the buzz around Brizzy. There's grants becoming available for more and more athletes of that younger generation in the hope and the lead up to Brisbane. There's the talent ID searches going on at the moment, trying to find the next generation of para and able athletes, all with the hope of that Brizzy 2032 and onwards. So, we're sort of in like a little bit of a transition, or, that final build phase towards Brizzy. But I think what also sometimes does get missed as well is athletes currently in the system who are potentially looking to go towards LA and Brisbane. There also needs to be that support for those current athletes in the city. I feel as though currently it's very much, we need the new generation. But, we've got a 20-year-old in the paratriathlon. He's probably still going to be there and come Brizzy. So that kind of, you've also got to look at, I guess, who's actually also currently in your system at the moment, and are they getting the right support as well? And look, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but the support is what actually makes our sport do well. So I think, you can look at we can say some sports get some nice support, and then some sports are still very much scraping the barrel. So I think it shows in the medal tally. But
it's a unique aspect too, isn't it? That obviously,
it's unique,
yeah. Because if you look at Sydney, that was announced 93, so you only had Atlanta. You had one Olympics between Sydney. technically Brisbane will have 3 because technically Brisbane was announced days before Tokyo. Then you probably wouldn't really lump that in because obviously, different, Olympics 3 days later, money, that's not going to work. But then obviously you've had Paris, then LA. I mean, we talked about this when it came to the Olympics that we feel, did Australia peak a little bit too early in terms of certain things? Because I feel that's going to put pressure on LA that if, say, in the Olympics, we don't get the medals we got in Paris, then we're going to be worried about things. But again, we know it's not all about medals because that was one thing I wanted to add, that there seemed to be a level of almost worry or criticism that if you looked at the medal tally from the Paralympics that Australia didn't live up to expectations. But the way I looked at it and the way we looked at it is that there's so many other factors. And the biggest thing I think is that, and maybe you can talk on this, Jeremy, is that parasports in general have improved on a level so much that the rest of the world is maybe catching up. Like you look at Sydney, where we topped the medal tally, I think 80-something gold medals or something ridiculous like that 24 years ago. On paper, looks amazing. 84 gold medals, we'll take it. But 24 years later, it's more about the improvement that the rest of the world has caught up to where we were 24 years ago. So there's all different elements, I think, that it's all well and good to judge a performance on a medal tally, but it's not that simple. And it shouldn't matter whether you walk away with 80 gold medals or none. You're all representing our country. You've all made the Paralympics. Everybody should be proud of you, no matter whether you get medals or not.
Yeah, I agree very much so. I mean, to get to the Paralympics, it's not just like, you're impaired. Okay, yep, you're going. Like, it is full on to make the squad. It's no walk in the park. I've seen guys and athletes miss out on the Paralympics by a couple of points because of just how good how high the quality of competition is around the world. And I do agree with your point around the world has caught up. And I say that not only for parasport, but in triathlon as well. I mean, you look back to the late 90s in triathlon, it was an Australia and New Zealand domination. Like we'd be having 5 Aussies in the top 6. And let's be honest, that's because it was only Australians and New Zealanders competing and maybe a handful of others. But really, it was just Australia and New Zealand. Now, 24 years later, you've got every corner of the globe competing in triathlon, and
we've got Norwegians winning triathlon. That just doesn't feel natural.
And you've got people are just catching up with what triathlon is. So I find it very interesting when, you hear or you look back and everyone's like, Australia used to be a powerhouse in XYZ sport. And you're like, okay, well, let's actually look at the results there. There weren't, to be frank, there weren't many other athletes or other countries competing. And that's because it was just such a new sport and we were just so good at it. And look, we are still good. We're still very much renowned as one of the top countries in triathlon, but other countries have caught up. And we have to jump on that train. And if we're not on that train, we're going to get left behind. And I think it's the same in my category within paratriathlon. I'll be brutally honest. This year, the train departed the station, and I was running after that train. I wasn't on it. I was being left behind at the platform, and that's just showing that my category, the times have improved, and we've just got some new people who have maybe acquired their impairment recently, who've just figured out how to run on their blade or figured out how to, use their impairment to their advantage. And they're competing at a very, very high level. So much so that the winner of my category, Alexi Hankinquan, he's pretty much capable of either winning or being up there in, your local 2XU or your local Queensland triathlon races. If he was to go and compete against the elites, I'm not saying he's going to win, but he'd be really close. He'd be up there. So for my category, I look back at 2022 and obviously I'm very proud and happy to say that I'm a world championship medalist. But I look back at 2022, half of the people that I'm now racing against weren't there. And just the level and the standard of quality of racing has jumped. And so, I mean, like, it's fantastic. I'm so happy to be involved in this part of history, and really being the trailblazers of that. But yeah, at the same time, if you want to be competitive and if you want to be making the Paralympics, you've got to be competing at a very, very strong level. Um, so the next 4 years, as I said, who knows where this could go? I mean, my category could stay exactly the same, and I could be competing with exactly the same group of guys in 4 years' time, or there may be some new young blood coming up through that we just don't know of or haven't seen yet, or someone may acquire their impairment next year, and then in 3 years' time they're at LA. So um, para sport in general is really interesting in that fact. Like, I think with able bods, you can sort of see where maybe the athletes are going, because you've got that pathways performance, and you've got the under 23s, the juniors, which then turn into elites. You're not really going to have like me, the 30-year-old come in out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, that's a new competitor for you. So yeah, para sport, just your competitors are changing every now and again. Whereas in able bods, you generally would probably know who's going to be your competition and who's the up and comers. So it's really interesting in that fact.
I've never it's so fascinating that you put it that way, because that is very unique to parasport, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking of someone like Alexa Leary, who face of the Paris Paralympics for Australia, but I mean, obviously with what happened to her and sort of how that's happened and everything, like, it's just, that is very unique. I've never thought about it that way, and it ties into what I was going to ask you before we got to Paris about that rapid ascent, because like you touched on that, you make your international debut in 2022, obviously through circumstances out of your control with COVID and everything. You were meant to do it earlier, but like, if you look at your results on paper, when it literally says made international debut in 2022, world championship bronze medalist in 2022, like, pretty good start. But then like that rapid ascension, that even a few years prior, as you sort of alluded to, you weren't even in this sport. So it's just kind of backing up everything you're saying about how quickly things can change, how can go through that way. With all that in mind, at what point did you sort of look at Paralympics, this is where I want to be? Was this sort of once you got into the sport, as soon as you got there, you knew that was the elite level, that's where I want to be? Was it a moment once you started getting a little bit more comfortable and you're doing all right, sort of maybe on a local level? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, Paralympics, this is where I want to go to?
I think it was probably once I started doing all right internationally. So I think when I started, getting a couple of podiums at some international World Series and World Cup races, I was like, maybe there's something in this. Like, I'm enjoying the travel. I'm enjoying the competition. Maybe, Paralympics is where I want to go. And I think it then got solidified when I, achieved that bronze medal at the 2022 Worlds. I was like, actually, I can do this. So yeah, I'd say end of 2022 is when I solidified it and went, okay, I want to try and go to the Paralympics.
It's like then 18 months essentially from that point, you've sort of got this
pretty much. Like you've
journey.
You've then going to be, so end of 2022. By middle of 2023, by sort of June, July 2023, you need to be in like a very good world ranking position to start making your targeted approach towards getting selected for the Paralympics. So it was a pretty quick turnaround from, yes, I want to go to the Paralympics, to, okay, we need to do everything we can to make sure you get selected.
And it's also that case. So your post on social media you've got here on July the 19th, when that you've announced that you're officially going to be representing Australia. Now, before people say that's a week before the Olympics, well, a week before the Olympics, yes, but there's a bit more of a distance between the Paralympics, but it's still not that far away. That's barely a month, or just, give or take a few days, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, was that a case of, because I know there's many sports where you're going, it's just you've got to be, cleared, or was this a case of you had to wait until that moment to be selected, or like, how did that work? I mean, that's very close to the Paralympics there, Jeremy.
Look, so to give you a bit of background on it, so to get selected, firstly, you have to finish in the top 9 of the world in your category. So I think I finished seventh in the rankings. Now, what that means is I don't get that spot. So me finishing seventh doesn't mean, yep, okay, Jeremy Peacock gets a
That's
nod
a quota.
to,
That's an Australian
yeah,
quota.
quota,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes to the federation, goes to Australia. So then it's up to Oz Triathlon and their selection committee to make an assessment or selection as to who goes or who takes that quota spot. Now, in para sport, it's going to be very or fairly uncommon that you'll obtain that quota spot and then you won't get selected. Just because one, we just don't have the depth of athletes, in para triathlon, and two, generally, your results should back up your quota allocation. I guess you maybe look at the able bods side of things. That's where it could get a little bit different, and it has been in the case in history. So we won't open that kind of worms. But so yeah, you receive at the end of our 12-month window of qualification, whatever your ranking is, that gets you the quota spot if you're in the top 9. And then every country has their own unique or ways of selecting their team. So someone like the USA, I know they had I think it was Podium maybe, I think it was if you podium like the test event or podiumed at Worlds 2023, that was an automatic nomination. You're automatically selected. Some countries have specific races there that they might say, okay, yeah, if you podium at this race, that's an automatic qualification. But for Oz Triathlon and the Paris Scene, ours was if you were ranked in the top 5 in the world at the end of the qualification period, that was an automatic selection.
Oh, so close.
And then if you were 6 to 9,
Yeah.
that was on discretion.
Wow.
And discretion, lovely word, but they basically look at, are your results trending upwards? How are you positioned to get us a medal come Paris? So look, finishing seventh, I was the best Aussie to finish. My results had been all right, maybe not what I was hoping for. And, there were a couple of races right at the back end of the season, which didn't really go to plan. And so I think going into that period of finishing 30th of June till waiting till whenever we got announced, I probably wasn't concerned. I was feeling pretty confident that I should get the nod. But obviously, because it's discretion, anything can go. So when people were asking me, I was constantly saying, I'm not sure. I don't know. Deep down, yeah, I had a fairly good intuition that I'd get the selection and, had my case ready if it did go to discretion, they didn't select me. But yeah, because it's not automatic, you can't hand on heart say, yes, I am going. So yeah, throughout that whole period of waiting 3 weeks or so for the results to come out, you're just trying to do training as if you are going. You pretty much put the mental hat on as, yep, I'm going. And because that's a pivotal time in your training sessions. That's 4 to 6 weeks out. That's key. You don't want to be seen around not doing the training session to the full ability. So it's a really, really interesting time. And I guess, I think I was fortunate to think that, I should have done enough to get the selection. But, there were some other teammates who were very close on the cusp. Some that were finishing 8th, 9th, even 10th in the selection, in the world rankings. And I'm sure their stories may have been a bit different, or maybe the same. But, that whole 3-week period was a very long time, and it's tough as well when you're seeing other countries select their teams, and you're going how long? It can't take that long. We've got to sort of know sooner rather than later. And some teams were announced a week later.
Wow.
And so
It's like when you go for a job interview, isn't it? It sounds like you're so confident. you know you've got the job. Like we've all had those job interviews, but it's just waiting around, just absolutely waiting around. And I believe so. I read you got a great blog, by the way. I always appreciate it when our guests have a blog. It makes my job a lot easier on this show. But you've got a section here when you talk about you going to the Paralympics, and you got a heading here saying, "How did you find out?" So you received a phone call a week before the public announcement from Triathlon, which was short in duration, but essentially notified me that Paralympics Australia had accepted the nomination. So what's then like, what do you do after that phone call? That would be my part one of that question. And then part two is, what's that like having to wait a week before you can officially shout off the rooftops, "I'm going to the Paralympics"?
Yeah. Again, it was an interesting time because, as I sort of said, I'd really sort of put my hat on that I'm going. So it wasn't like this. I know I've seen other people who have like filmed when they get the announcement and all that. Mine was so bland. It was just like, okay, cool. Like, anything else? No? Okay, cool. Like, it wasn't how I expected it to play out. And then obviously, yeah, you can't tell anyone. There's no public announcement yet for another week. So you can't go and tell your wife. You can't go and tell your family.
Couldn't even tell your wife?
Nah. I'm like, well, I'm not. Like, I mean,
wow.
I should have.
I hope she doesn't hold that against you.
Hopefully not. No. And you just don't want to risk it because that's massive. If that gets leaked before the public announcement, then
true.
There's a lot on you. So I'm like, no, I'll play by the rules. I won't tell anyone. But yeah, like a big relief to actually get the call and say, yep, you're going. But as I said, there wasn't that fanfare of emotion or jubilation. It was just like, okay,
so you didn't even have a little moment. You didn't have like this little moment where like you hang the phone up and you just didn't even like just a little fist bump or like have an extra bit of oatmeal in the morning with a few more something.
It was because I was in Spain at the time, and so I got the call like 7:30 in the morning, and I was about to head out the door for like my run or something. So it was just like, yep, cool, okay, I'm off for training.
I'm late. Thanks, guys. Come on, late.
Off we go. So,
wow.
It just that I must say that was a period. It's like that's not how I envisioned it to go.
You never do that. You never do in life's big moments.
No.
Like you always have this, like whether it be a positive or negative thing like that. I mean, I'll change that question up then because it's a question we ask anybody on this show. Was there a moment then that it hit you that you were a Paralympian? Like get the uniform, opening ceremony, the day of your thing. I mean, has it hit you? I mean, we're obviously recording this a few months after. I mean, maybe that's the answer, that it still hasn't hit you.
Hasn't. It hasn't
wow.
hit me. Hasn't. I've got all the memorabilia. I've got the pictures. I've got the memories, but there hasn't or wasn't that time where, everyone, I sort of got the whole, sorry. Everyone was saying to me, like, you're going to have this moment of, oh shit. Like, I'm a Paralympian or I'm at the Paralympics. I never got that. I never got that experience. My whole time, it just felt like another race. Yes, a bigger race, but it just felt like another world champs potentially. It never came across to me that this is the biggest race of your life. This is the pinnacle of your sport. I never really got that. I think it came down to the work I'd done with my sports psych in the lead up, and not just in the last, week, the last month before the games, but this was a journey of 6 to 12 months of work of changing the way I viewed races and viewed my competitors. I think I got to that. I got to the Paralympics and never had that heavy weight of I'm at the Paralympics. I think the closest I got to it was when I walked down onto the pontoon for the race start and seeing the Eiffel Tower, you're on the Seine, you look up and you see the massive grandstand, the massive big screen. You're like, Yeah, this is a little different to my standard races, but
A little bit.
like there was a little bit of an oh shit moment there, but it was then boom, blinkers are on. So yeah, and I'm still processing that. Like I think because you as a human being, you want you want that experience, or you
Hmm.
want to have that feeling. And I think when it's all built up that you're going to get this feeling, you're going to get this feeling, and then it doesn't happen, it's like, well, did that actually happen? And look, I mean, I'm very honored, very humbled to be called a Paralympian, but right now it still just doesn't feel like it was this big event.
And that doesn't
As I
change you.
said,
You're
it
still
just
you're
felt,
still just
yeah, that's it.
you're still just Jeremy
It's
Peacock.
I'm just me. I mean, I go back to work. I go back to my everyday life, and there's none of this big fanfare. There's no streamers and fireworks going off when I enter every room. The
Well, there
Paralympian
should
has
be. Come on,
arrived.
Geelong. Fix that.
um, it's just everyday me. I'm just back to myself. So um, yeah, you ride these waves of different emotions post game. So I can understand now how athletes returning from the games speak of this post games depression and blues or whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I think because I didn't experience those overwhelming emotions during the events, and maybe the result I achieved at the games, whilst it was still okay in my books, it wasn't really what I was hoping for. So I think you go through these times of really trying to understand what one had happened, but two, like, okay, I'm a Paralympian now, but what does that actually mean? Um, and for me, yeah, okay, yeah, I've got PLY after my name now, but it doesn't really change who I am or what I do.
Get you
I'm still
invited to a
just
few
Jeremy.
more extra parties, though, probably. Like
Yeah,
just to.
a couple of awards ceremonies and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love hearing that,
Yeah,
Jeremy,
it's
because
weird.
it's sort of it's explained in a way that every athlete experiences something differently. I mean, I had a conversation. I went to an Olympians event in Sydney after Paris, and I had a conversation with an Olympian there, and it was interesting hearing them explain their reaction from coming back from Paris, and just the way they worded it was kind of like they almost like it made them almost hate the Olympics, and it wasn't on a level of like it's a really hard thing to explain without kind of going into what they said fully, but it was a fascinating way of looking at it. And that's not me saying that you have come away from Paris hating it, but it's like I
Uh,
guess we all have perspectives of athletes coming back from an event like this. It's the pinnacle of your event, your life, maybe even like your sport. You're working so hard to it, but as you kind of alluded to, everyone's it's different, and you can come away the happiest person on the planet, the saddest, or somewhere in between. And I mean, yeah, I mean, we're obviously still very fresh too. We're recording this 4 months removed from this. It's not like we're doing this 10 years removed. So I'm sure these are things that are all going to sort of sit with you, and then you'll digest them gradually over time until you're on your deathbed talking to your great grandkids about great granddad went to Paris one day and I survived
yeah.
the poop in the Seine. It was great.
Yeah. 100%, yeah.
It's fascinating kind of how looking at it. I mean, you brought it up, just the performance level. I mean, I was going to ask that. I mean, eighth, you finished eighth. You touched on sort of maybe going into what you were expecting. I mean, did you set yourself a target of a medal and kind of, now that it's been a few months, any different reflections sort of looking back on the fact, that's sort of how it all ended up from your performance there in Paris?
I think if you go to the Paralympics, you're going for a medal.
Yeah. It's
That's
a
what we
dumb
do.
question I love to ask everyone, but I have to ask it.
That's why. That's
No,
why
I wanted
put
to be
myself-
27th,
yeah,
Ben.
yeah,
I was so thrilled
yeah.
with 8th.
No, that's why. That's why I put myself through all this. I'm not. I'm obviously doing this for the enjoyment, but I'm also doing it to represent my country and do well on the world
Yeah.
stage. So, yeah, I obviously wanted the medal. I think, look, for me, I would have been really content with the top 5. Obviously, yeah, medal would have just been awesome. Um, Look, 8th, as you said, having time to reflect on it, digest it. Um, 8th was at the lower end of my expectations. I look at the guys who came in front of me, and look to put this. I mean, I think everyone in my category just had outstanding days. No one had a bad day. I mean, I mean, the guy who won, Alexei Hankin-Kwan. I mean, he was the face of Paris. He was almost he could have been the mayor of Paris at that point in time. He was plastered everywhere. He was, he held the Olympic and the Paralympic torch. He was Mr. France. So that pressure could have either gone one of two ways for him. He could have either capitulated and had a shocker, or he could have done what he did and just blow everyone out of the field. Like, he normally wins and wins comfortably. But what he did on that day, even myself as a fellow competitor, like, I look back now and I go, that was pretty impressive. To be the fastest out of everyone, to be being guys that are apparently less impaired than him, well, are less impaired than him, to being the vision impaired guys who should really be beating us, for him to win and to slow up in the last game, blow kisses and high fives and whatnot.
Basically, Usain Bolt it, just, slow it down at the end, just so the glory.
To be in a time where you've got someone like him who's transcending the sport and taking it to another level, it's a love-hate relationship. It's like, it's fantastic to be a part of this time in history, but my God, could you give someone else a chance to win, please?
Makes it more sweeter when you beat him too, right? That you're beating the GOAT.
I mean, the guy, he is the GOAT, and like, he hasn't been beaten since I think it's 2019 or something.
Wow.
I think it's like 20. It might even be close to 30 wins now in a row. So
wow,
he's the GOAT of at least our category. But the guys that were in front of him, the guys that were in front of me, look, I've had some very, very good battles with these other guys over the year or 18 months in the lead up to the games. Sometimes I've beaten them, sometimes I haven't. And I think just everyone that was ahead of me, we all had the best races of our day or our lives. And I look back, I keep replaying the race in my head, but I go, I don't think there was anything that I did or could have done that would have got me that top five. Yes, there were some split-second decisions I made during the race that maybe could have changed the course of where I came, but I don't think those decisions would have got me, into the podium or top five position of what I was hoping for. So I look back now and I go, okay, 8th in the world, still got to be very, very proud and happy of that. Not many people can say that they've been to a Paralympics, let alone be 8th in the world. But when you go in feeling primed, feeling ready to deliver the performance of your life, and then others also do the same, and it's not where you wanted it to land, it sort of questions. Well, it's hard to find that motivation again to get going. I think if I'd podiumed or was so close to the podium that I could have touched it, or on the other end of the spectrum, if I had an absolute stinker of a race and, came at the back end of the field, there might be that real drive and grit to go again and get up and, show that either, yes, it wasn't a fluke, or no, that was a bad day, this is why I can perform. But I think, when you come mid-pack, you've raced, honestly, probably as best as I could have done on that day. You sort of sit back and you go, like, what else could I really have done? So to get up and go again, which I had to do 4 weeks later at World Champs, is an interesting concept to do. But I'm very glad I still went to World Champs. Like, there was a 50-50 call there as to whether I'd go, but I knew if I didn't go, I'd be one, having FOMO, but two, like, I knew it was something I needed to do to get going again.
And you improved. You got 7th. You got one position higher.
one position higher. Ultimately, like to that point, the guy who came sixth at the games wasn't there. So, like the race,
That's a him problem, not a you problem, Jeremy.
Yeah,
Let's be
exactly.
honest. Yep.
So like I was glad I went. It sort of showed to me that even with very little training, because I definitely didn't train to the extent I should have, I could still perform on the world stage at still a fairly decent level. So it showed that, okay, well, if I put my head down, I can potentially come away with something here. And, we sort of know what we need to work on. It gives me some great insight and belief going into 2025. And then, we've got our World Championships in Wollongong next year. So a fantastic event and a fantastic opportunity for Australia to show to the world what triathlon can be like down here. So, having the World Championships on your back doorstep is massive. So that gives you at least the motivation to know, okay, well, we're 10 months out now. Okay, let's put our head down. Let's aim so that we can get back on the World Championship podium in 2025.
Gives you an excuse actually to want to go to Wollongong too. So why not?
No, Wollongong's good.
Absolutely. So, I mean, one thing I love the photo that Oz Triathlon shared after your event, and it's on your account too. The sort of image of you at the finish line, sort of slumped on your back, hand on your head, and then you got the quote there saying, "I had 10% survival chance when I was born, and I think that grit and determination from day one has got me to where I am today." So I mean, like that. Honestly, it's a great image. It's one of those motivational posters that, people should have on the wall. So, I mean, at the end of the day, through sort of that whole journey and everything that you sort of told about to get you to that point, I mean, you must sort of reflect on that part of things and sort of, look at that achievement as maybe something a little bit more, again, as you said, top 10 in the world, Jeremy. I mean, very few people on this planet can say that they are at a level that they are good at something, that they are top 10 in the world at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, like... 7 years ago, I would never have thought I'd go to the Paralympics. It wasn't even a fleeting thought. So, to now step back and say that, yeah, you've been there, you've done it. You want to go again, hopefully, if we can get there. The little kid in me is like, this was not on your life card. But I wish it was. I wish, I wish when I was a kid that I was thinking about that. And as I said before, that's why I'm hoping I can now prove or provide to those young kids out there now that, look, you can do this if you want to. And there is the pathway now to do it. There is a way to get there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very humbled and very appreciative of what I've been able to do. But yeah, I just hope. Well, I think the kid inside me looks at it and goes, "That's something that's actually pretty damn cool." Because back then, as I said, I had no idea about. I only really knew about parasport until London. I think it's probably my first memory of parasports. So. I hope the little kid in me is like, yeah, you should be proud of that, which I am.
That's awesome to hear. Great to hear that. I want to get to some get to know you style questions in a sec, just to sort of wrap it up on a nice fun note. But one question, you added a new question to my list here, Jeremy, when you said something there about sort of these guys in front of you that, on their day you can beat and sort of and all that sort of stuff. He said one of these guys, is there one who's like the one that you always see as your rival? Who's the one that maybe pisses you off a little bit more that he beats you on the day? Like, I want you to be completely brutal, throw them under the bus, tell them why they suck and why you're going to beat them at the next time. Like, rip into them. This is your chance right now, Jeremy.
Look, I mean, I'll save with this just in case they're listening.
No one listens to this show. It's fine. It's all good.
No, in all honesty, like these guys outside of racing are like some of the best humans I've ever met. Like, I've got a lot of time for a lot of my competitors. Like, obviously, don't get me wrong, race week and race day, I am like, yep, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to give it everything. But once we cross that line, I mean, win, lose, or draw, it will be amicable, and it'll be, I mean, prime example, world champs this year. Final night after the men's race, walking back, and the whole of the Great British Paratriathlon squad out having drinks. I just hear, Peacock! Next minute, having drinks with all of them. Next minute, we're all partying. We've got Alex Yee lifting one of the wheelies up the stairs, gold medalist at the Olympic Games. And all just partying together and just having a good time. So, I've now got connections all around the world through my sport. So I'll put a premise that these guys are very, very good, genuine
I was
human
going to
beings.
say, I love how that's a genuine good premise, because I was going to chime in and go like, stop cheaping out of this answer, Jeremy. Answer me. Tell me which one pisses you off. Come on.
Yeah. So there's two that piss me off. One I've beaten before, who's Franco, he's the Czech Republic guy who came 7th at the Games. And that was one of like the split decision assessments I made on the race. Coming out of transition, I was just behind him, maybe 25, 30 meters behind him. And one of my split decision thoughts was, do I try and sprint up to him and get on his back so I can put pressure on him? Or do I try and, over time, just pull him in? I went with the latter, and I'm like, what happens if I did try and get up to him and put pressure on him? Because he was looking back. He was just constantly looking back. I'm like,
you're scared of you.
Yeah, he was scared. So he was running scared, but unfortunately I just couldn't reel him in. So he's probably one that just every time I'm like, I really want to beat you. And the other one I've never beat before, but is Pierre-Antoine Vale. Like, again, lovely guy, absolutely lovely guy. But just because I've never beaten him, I mean, I guess I could put Alexi in there as well. But those two Frenchies, I'm like, I would just love to beat you guys one day. So
there we go. Rivalry for LA that we can sort of really talk up. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I appreciate your honesty, Jeremy. I like it. Thank you.
Good guys. Good guys.
They're good guys that you just want to kick their ass. Is essentially what you're saying. I mean, let's be honest. It's just like if you support a sporting team, right? Like deep down, you probably respect most of the teams against your teams, but like I'm a Carlton supporter. If we beat Collingwood or Essendon or Richmond, it's just a little bit sweeter. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Screw those guys.
So,
but if we lose to like Brisbane, it's fine. They're harmless, right?
Handshake, well done. See you in the next one. Where's beers?
Exactly. Yeah. So you get exactly what I'm saying. Jeremy, we wrap up every interview. We have a set of get-to-know style questions as always. It's a questionnaire that was given to Team Canada members ahead of the 2016 and 2018 Olympics. Simple questions. We like to think so. There's always the option. Hopefully, there's always the option to draw. This was a written questionnaire that they then put up on their website. How are your drawing skills? Are you a bit of a drawer or not really into it?
I did art up until year 12, so
you might be into this.
I'd say I was more of a landscaper more than a portrait. So if you get a portrait, it's a stick figure.
We're all good for stick figures. Now, this is something I will reiterate. I mean, you don't have to do it right now. This can be a case of do it afterwards. If you're bored at work today, you can just draw something in the thing. But like your options are, so on this one, we're using a questionnaire for Canadian hockey player Laura Stacey. So they had draw a picture of your teammate or draw a picture of yourself. So I don't know how your skills are if you've got a teammate. I mean, you could draw one of your rivals. Draw a picture of them losing and you standing over them going, Exactly. I beat you, Franco. It's all, this is what I'm going at. But entirely up to you, Jeremy, if that's something you want to do today. You can send us into us and we'll post on social media.
Don't tell my boss that I'm drawing on the job.
Would never tell your boss anything, Jeremy. What are you talking? By the time he hears this is dated enough. He won't even know what day it was. First question for you. Now the question is my favorite Olympic moment of all time is. But please, Olympic, Paralympic, please diversify it if you wish to. Any of the Olympics or Paralympics you've watched over the years, you can even say it's your own. Like entirely up to you what you want to answer for this.
I put two.
Of course you can. Absolutely.
First one, I think like anyone who's Australian would say it's Kathy Freeman's 400 at the 2000 Olympics. Like, you'd be un-Australian if you didn't say that, I think.
You get deported for that shit. That's why I'm currently not. That's why I'm not in Australia right now because that's not mine.
Isn't that
so there you go.
A citizenship test or something like that?
Yeah, it is. First question.
What was Kathy Freeman's 400 time or something? And my other one would be the 2012 triathlon where, Brownlee just kicked ass and went up against Mola and whatnot. I think that's the time when triathlon really became a known sport. I think was because of that. So what London did, what Brownlee did, who's just actually recently announced his retirement, and I think it was a true patron to the man. The amount of quotes and anecdotes coming from everyone in the triathlon world and even outside the triathlon world of what he's done to transcend the sport. I think that moment as well, watching that was pretty cool. So those would be my two moments.
Two very esteemed athletes who obviously a lot of admiration. I like those answers. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Teleportation, 100%.
Yeah. Good one,
Just
right?
stuff, commuting to the pool or, jumping between high performance sport and then my job, if I could just teleport just to where I need to be, that'd be great.
Two questions on that. One, I have to backtrack for a question that I miss asking you, but could you sneakily use that in triathlon? Say you're all in the whitewash of the swimming. Could you sort of maybe just briefly don't make it obvious. You don't jump in the water and hit the finish line. That's a bit obvious, but
just like a subtle, if I'm in the water 20 meters, just get ahead of the pack and, subtly.
A couple of skids. And the other question that I missed, when we open on the Seine, but talk to us about swimming in it, because you said that you swam in worse. So was it not as bad as people kept saying that you were going to get extra arms and, all these diseases and stuff?
I mean, obviously there was a lot of media hype around the river in the lead up. And I think what I've realized now being a Paralympian is, and I mean, I've always watched Olympics and to a lesser extent Paralympics as growing up. But when I watched the Olympics, I watched it as a fan of sport.
Yeah.
Whereas this year I found myself, I was watching the Olympics more with a sort of a business hat on or an analysis type of hat on. And key was for me actually watching the men swim in the Seine and seeing them going absolutely nowhere because of the current. And just straight away, I just thought, if Henry Schoeman and Matt Hauser are going nowhere, what hope have we got? There's the best swimmers in the world in triathlon and open water swimming almost, and they're going nowhere. Me as who's only just relearned how to swim over the last 4 years, what's going to happen to me? So, it was actually more the current we were watching rather than the quality. We always knew the quality wasn't going to be Amazon rainforest water. It was going to be bad, but I think I had in my mind it was going to be worse than what it actually turned out to be for my race. The fact I could still see my hand when I was entering, I could see bubbles and splashes of the feet.
You weren't dodging pieces of poo, basically.
I mean, there was on the side, I did see a couple of floating objects, but
they weren't moving though, I hope. They didn't have eyes.
They were moving with the current, but
right, but not on their own accord. They weren't going to eat you or something like that. Okay,
no, not from what I could see. But the fact I could see when I was swimming right up against the side of the Seine, because that's where the current wasn't as strong on the way back in. I could see the bottom, I could see rocks. So that's why I say I've swum in worse. I mean, go swim.
Where's worse? Where have you? Where was worse?
Port Phillip Bay in Melbourne here after a deluge of rain. You're going to come out with gastro. So, or some of the 2XU races I've swam in, the water's been so choppy and.
You survived Devonport, Jeremy. You've survived. I'm Tasmanian, right?
So, Devonport is actually a very good quality. It's actually quite good.
Okay, we'll give Devonport something then.
Give Devonport something. But I've swam it worse. I mean, even they say that at Montreal, at the F1 track, it's a man-made lake in there.
Yeah.
But they always say that water quality is good. But I can never really see my hand in that one. I'm going. But I I've definitely swam in worse. So I would say the Seine, yes, it was different. It was interesting. And yes, there was a lot of media hype around it, but we were in a bubble. I wasn't looking at that kind of stuff. There was no point getting all caught up around it.
And is that
Same
the
with
biggest
when
question? Is that the biggest question people ask you about Paris? Is
oh
the
yeah,
river?
every time. It's always the first question I get asked.
I like to be
And
part of the
yeah,
common crowd, Jeremy.
but
Yep.
I think with that, and even also with when our race got delayed as well to the next day, there wasn't any point in wasting mental energy on those type of questions and those type of concerns. It was like, look, it is what it is. We're all in the same boat. So just adapt with it. And I think that's no one really talks about it. Like everyone talks about the three legs of triathlon, four if you count transition, but the leg that no one talks about is the adaptability. And
Mm.
I think as triathletes, we are very adaptable humans. And it's shown in both the Olympics and the Paralympics how us as athletes had to adapt to water quality, pushing back races because of that. And I think I just really went in with the thought of, okay, everyone's in the same boat. It's whoever can manage their emotions and manage the factors around them that are going to come out on top on the day. So,
Which it's also that
yeah,
level of it's. I mean, I think of the picturesque nature of what we saw there, and I mean, from an audience perspective, second to none. I mean, I think back to the very first Olympic triathlon in Sydney. That was day one back then. That was the morning after the opening ceremony, and you see Sydney Harbour and just the majestic nature of that. So it's sort of that level where obviously they've got to think of the athlete. It's not all about, oh, this looks pretty on TV, but they're gonna get cancer. It's not like that. It's more of a level of, I guess, trying to find a balance there. And let's be honest, Paris did a shit ton, no pun intended, to try and make that worthy of the time for it. So you can't fault their effort for spending more money than they should have to try and make that work for you guys.
And for us as athletes, we are there to do a triathlon. I'm not there to do a duathlon, even though, yes, I don't like swimming and duathlon will probably favour me more, but I train to do a triathlon. So, yeah, when people were asking oh, are you really going to swim in that? It's like, hell yes. Give me all the antibiotics that's needed, but I've not come all the way across I haven't put my life on hold for 2 years to not go and do a swim. What was it, maybe 12 minutes, I think, at the end for me, in the water. I'm going to swim in that and it's going to be freaking awesome. And it was. And there you are, popping the antibiotics as soon as you cross the line. I'm 100% doing that. So
You weren't like that guy. Who was that?
no
I can't remember.
concerns.
I can't remember which athlete it was. What was he like? Not washing his hands or something before the event, or
What's it? Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
mate, I don't think that's going to help. I don't think that's going to really help your immune system.
I don't want to ever go near that person ever. That just makes me feel sick.
Whatever's going on in Canada, I think it was Canada.
I blame the Canadians. It's always the Canadians.
But I don't know. I know Tyler was the one that was puking everywhere, but that was definitely not because of the same. That's because of effort.
Wow.
That was the best, actually. I think when the media got hold of all those pictures of all the guys spewing across the line, and they're all going, "Oh, it's the Seine, it's the Seine." It's like, no, have you actually ever watched the triathlon race? That is pure exhaustion. It's pretty common to see guys emptying their guts after a race.
I remember it was Tokyo. There was a triathlete in the Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, Winterfeld, the winner.
Famously across the line was puking his guts up. Yeah,
and that is what you got to do to win.
Yeah, I mean, there was at Rio in the marathon, the famous one of the guy who pooped himself as he was running. Yeah. It went viral. I mean, it's just, you're right. It's the effort that you guys are putting yourself into. More vomit, the more effort you've put into, right?
But this was the really interesting thing that I saw from being an athlete now is the general public who only see you once every 4 years. So I'm talking about the general public who don't follow triathlon, or even, I don't know who follows paratriathlon except for the athletes and coaches and staff, but thank you if you're following paratriathlon. but seeing, the comments that are coming from people who only see the sport once every 4 years, and the biggest one that we had was because of the current, the officials had to state that we actually had to change our starting procedure. So I don't know if you remember, but in the paratriathlon, you would have seen everyone sitting on the pontoon and then diving in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do not do that in every other race. In every other World Triathlon race, we actually hop in the water and hold on to the pontoon and then go. And the reason for this was because of the current, because there is this one athlete who has no arms. He's in the PTS3 category, Kim, great guy from South Korea, but he's got no arms. So as soon as he jumps into the water, he would have just been taken off to Bordeaux. He was gone. So they said to us 48 hours before the race, we're changing the start. You're all going to sit on the pontoon and dive in.
Wow.
Now, when we get this, and we're at swim training when we get this information, and we're going, you're joking, right? Like, we're going to look like absolute nufties. Like, for people who watch this for the first time, they're going to be seeing all these people like just as if we're learning to dive, like we're 3-year-olds learning how to dive in the water, just going, oh, and these triathletes, they're having a good old crack, aren't they?
Wow.
So there we are, 2 days before the race at the pool. We've got the Paralympic swimmers in the lanes next to us, all doing their, just doing whatever they're doing, pre-race set. And here we all are sitting on the edge of the on the edge of the pool, practicing diving in, practicing all different ways. Like, do we try and push off with our hands? Because also at that stage, we weren't told if we could use our feet, if we had feet, to push off from the ledge. And we also didn't know how far down the pontoon went. So we didn't know if our legs had to be really up, like close, and we were practicing that, and then we were all getting cramps in our hammies because of the angle we were at. And so it must have looked like it just must have looked absolutely horrendous. All these paratriathletes were practicing how to dive in off a seated ledge.
That's crazy.
On race day, having to do that. Again, something new, but I was just thinking, geez, people who are watching this for the first time are thinking, my God, can I not dive?
That's incredible.
Do they want to sit and dive in? But normally we just hold on, jump in at 30 seconds before the gun goes, hold on to the pontoon and then go.
There's little things you just don't think
about.
Because
of the current. Because of the current, they made us change it all.
So everyone stop talking about the poop and talk about the current. That's the issue that we're talking here.
Everyone was talking about the poop, everyone on the water quality. If it was actually in our bubble, we were all watching the current.
Jeez.
Because that was going to play the massive factor as to how you're going to race the race and what line to take and where to, almost like as if we're in surf lifesaving, use the rip to get out to the other back. It's same here, like try and get into the middle of the Seine to get out to the buoy as quick as you can, but then get to the side on the way back to, alleviate that current. So, it's just really interesting the different viewpoints of, if you're general public versus actually in the bubble at that moment.
That's why you need that teleportation superpower.
Yeah, exactly.
Go around it and kind of, what a fascinating story. That's just so interesting to kind of hear that and kind of hear that insight. I mean, we find a lot on this show. Like I get a lot of questions of, how the hell do you do an Olympics podcast? They're every 4 years. And as I always say, well, technically they're every 2 years. There is a Winter Olympics. And secondly, like these athletes don't just wake up in a July every 4 years and go, oh, shit, the Olympics are on. I might as well go compete. This isn't 1904. Yeah, I mean, 120 years ago, if you're in 1904, you could have done that. That's how the Olympics sort of worked back then. But no, they've sort of got a 4-year cycle where they're working their butts off to get there.
My 4-year cycle starts Monday, really. I'm back to training Monday, and it all starts again.
I make you relive all these memories right now when you're having some nice time off. Yeah. And you're like, shit, why is this guy wanting to interview me? Come on, need to have a rest.
It's not just like a flick of the switch. Okay, I'm going to go to the Paralympics. No, there's a lot of hard work and dedication behind the scenes that not many people see. And then it's just what you see on the outside of people coming up and going, oh, congratulations, you made it to the Paralympics. How was it? How was the river? You're only really giving them this little tip of the iceberg of what actually it cost and got to get there.
That's why you got your blog, right? This is what, like, we get these
exactly.
insights, right? Like, we love kind of hearing that. Your favorite sports movie, Jeremy, is?
Ooh, favorite sports movie. Mighty Ducks
Yes.
or Moneyball?
Yes, on both.
Yeah.
Gets me excited. Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
I mean, living right now in New York, I don't shy away from the fact that I have two NHL teams, right? I have a Canadian and an American. And of course my American team is the Ducks, because any Australian with a brain probably goes for the Anaheim Ducks, because we realize, oh my God, they really have a team. I'm going to go for them. So it's always fun. Like, they were here in New York about a month ago. So they play the 3 New York teams. I go to 3 games in 4 nights. And it's always fascinating seeing the level of Anaheim Ducks fans, because you had the movie fans who are wearing the movie jerseys. But then you had the people like me who are wearing like the real jerseys. And there's kind of this weird mix. So, I don't know if you ever...
It's like the first kind of movie I just distinctly remember watching. And just remember
such a
the
good
Mighty
movie.
Ducks,
Yeah.
So I think that's why I said that one. And Moneyball, more, I think maybe from like the
John Hamm.
the whole like the whole underdog story and all that. But also just the way, like, I think with my finance brain, how it's like, being able to get the most out of the limited resources. So I think maybe from that as well.
I'm thinking really. I went blank. Sorry, John Hamm. Obviously, that's $1 Million Arm. I'm thinking this is Brad Pitt we're talking about here. I'm going the wrong. But John Hamm. I mean, they're both very good-looking actors. So often you get entrenched in their beauty. But no, Moneyball. Absolutely great choices. I love those. On the same page of watching things, what is the most recent TV show that you binge watched?
Or Fisk, which is an ABC. It's an Australian comedy. With Keith Flanagan.
I've heard it's good. I've not seen it, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I never really watched when it first came out. But then again, my wife, love her. she said, have you watched Fisk? Have you watched Fisk? I'm like, no, I don't really know. And she said, no, let's watch it. And binge. So we binge watched season 1 and 2 a couple of months ago, and then season 3 just got released, so we binge watched that over the weekend. So
great. Kitty Flanagan, very funny woman. So I like that. Do you have a favorite pump up song that gets you in the zone, ready to compete?
Oh yeah. So ironically, my Spotify Wrapped, I looked at that yesterday. This song puts me in the 0.005% of listeners.
Wow.
It's an old school, well, I mean, I hate saying it's old school because, I was listening to this when I was like in high school, so I don't know what that says about me. But Kryptonite by 3 Doors Down.
Oh, yeah.
That was like my pop-up song for
you still call me Superman. Yeah, great song. Yeah.
That was like one of my pump-ups, I guess, through the lead up to the races that I was in for Paris. But like, Midnight City, that was getting played massively at Paris, so like that was a pretty cool little pump up song I had going as well. I'm just going through my list here as well.
I wasn't there for the Paralympics. I've got to ask a question though. Like I left after the Olympics, but did they keep playing Freed from Desire? That was kind of the anthem.
And that was awesome. That was so when that came out of the closing ceremony, I was just like, I was loving life.
Did you dance with Glitter Phryge? Did you get to dance with Glitter? Oh, yes.
I've got video of dancing with Glitter Phryge.
Please send me video of you with Glitter Phryge. I need to see you in Glitter Phryge.
And who was the other one? Dame Edna.
Dame Edna Phryge. Yes.
The big glasses, because
we talked about that, didn't we? I think we talked about that beforehand.
When you put up on your story of like all the different Phryges, I was like, I was with them, and because the whole story of it was obviously a closing ceremony, fantastic experience. But a lot of Team Australia left as soon as all the the official obligatories occur. And I think that was because mainly there was booze back at the at Team Oz. So I think everyone was wanting to get back to the party. But a few of us stayed around, and what they did, it was only now after I see like the closing ceremony what I realized what it is. But on each corner of the stage, they had a rotation of DJs. Must have been about, 20 to 25 different DJs that was going through the history of Paris dance music.
Oh, wow.
and they'll just rotate. They have like a 2 minute set, and they'll just rotate each corner. So the couple of the Aussie guys that I was with, we again, Great Britain is a key theme in my stories. But yeah, we teamed up. We found the Great Britain triathlete guys, and we're like front row, second row from one of these DJs. Like we just basically found a corner, propped up against the DJs, and yeah, like just about, I don't know, it must have been like 45 minutes of just music. But
Fantastic.
everyone's just dancing like this, and yeah, they played Midnight City, and then like yeah, it just, I think it got to the end like when it was getting all to the contemporary kind of current year type of
Hit Daft Punk
dancers,
probably.
hips, yeah, and then like and then Daft Punk came on with One More Time, and the whole stadium just lost it, and yeah, they're just some awesome memories. Like the rain's pissing down. We're in our little poncho condom things. We've got the Akubras on. All the GB athletes want to take our Akubras. I'm like, oh no, this is mine.
This is our Akubra.
This is
Piss
my
off.
possession.
Yeah.
This is keeping me dry as well. and just the whole stadium's just going nuts. And it was at that point in time, it was just such a really pivotal moment that there as well. I was like, okay, I'm actually here. Again, as I sort of said in today's talk, like I didn't really have that for that moment, but I was like, the whole time I was at the games, I didn't want to sit back now and go, oh, I wish I stayed back, or I wish I did this or did that. It was a very much a yes mentality to everything. And so I was like, look, the Australian Party is going to be going on into early hours of the morning,
going.
which it did, and it went well. But I'm like, I am never going to be in this stadium ever again, on the floor, front row from DJs and para athletes, volunteers, just everyone around you,
Glitter
just all
Phryge.
racing, loving life. Yeah, there's so many Phryges. And I love the Phryge. I was such a big fan of the Phryge. Probably the best photo I got of the whole games was at the opening ceremony, and it was the first time I'd seen one of the big Phryges out in public. So I was like, oh my God, go get a photo. Unbeknownst to me, the Royal Air Force is coming over the top with their tricolour, and someone got the photo just at the right point in time,
fantastic.
where the plane is directly above us, the coloured out the back, and there's all us like all happy and whatnot. I was like, that is just, it's on my Instagram page there.
Put it to the pool room, straight to the pool room.
Yeah, it's I was just like, oh, that is like, I peaked right there. But yeah, the Phryges I absolutely love. So whenever I saw one, I was like, yeah, just getting all around.
I did say, I mean, I swear at the beginning of the games, like I could never find one. There was I think I went to the rugby sevens final for the women, and they had one available, but this is one of these like 32-degree days, stinking hot, massive line outside the Stade de France. And of course, they need to take poor old person in the Phryge to get out of the suit. They're like boiling to death. So yeah. I got near the front, but then it was changeover time for Phryge. But eventually I got a Phryge at, it was one of the boxing, they were doing the lineup outside, got the photo. But then I think it was on the penultimate day of the Olympics. It was sort of my half day off. So I went up to Lille to watch handball, and lo and behold, Phryge, get a photo. By the time I get to the train station, another Phryge at the train station. Okay. Phryge train back to Paris, another bloody Phryge. I'm like, okay, now they're just stalking me, but I don't care because it's Phryge.
Because they're great.
So they are amazing. And you get them all at the opening ceremony. There was like 1,000 of them on the stage. So
that was so cool. That opening ceremony, again, so glad I went and did it. What maybe wasn't broadcast on the TV was actually the walk along the Champs-Elysees where the general public could come who didn't have tickets. That was like, they were going crazy. It was, and like, that was like sort of that was the first, I guess, experience we had of the Paralympics. You know, it was the first time we were out in public, and just to see how many people had come down. I was thinking, there's probably going to be like, maybe one person crowd deep. No, it was like 6, 7 people deep, and the whole way down the Champs-Elysees until we actually got into the stadium, which was then just like this massive amphitheater and just full to the brim of people. So, it really just showcased that the Paralympics is on par with the Olympics. I think, France just did a very good job. I mean, I know Australia is sports mad, but France is also up there.
Yeah,
The amount of, I think, and you probably would have seen at the Olympics as well, but just how much they got behind not only their French athletes, but just athletes in general. They were just there
100%
for
agree.
the pinnacle of sport, and there to enjoy what they were witnessing. So, like I think I'll have those memories etched in my brain forever because it was really a really amazing spectacle to be a part of both opening and closing ceremonies.
Yeah, and I think you might be the first athlete we've had from Paris who went to both the opening and the closing. So it's kind of interesting. And it's actually
Yeah,
one thing I was going to say you added a very interesting note there about the fact that the closing ceremony of the Paralympics pouring with rain, and we had the opening ceremony for the Olympics pouring with rain. So what a very lovely bookend that we had.
Whereas our opening ceremony was stinking hot. I think it was still in the low 30s, early at night. And yeah, I just remember like we were all having like the little fans and they were coming around with water. And again, like really well done. Really well done.
But it's weird the symmetry though, because I remember the closing ceremony for the Olympics stinking hot. So it's weird, isn't it? That you have opening ceremony for Olympics raining, closing ceremony for Paralympics raining, opening ceremony for Paralympics stinking hot, closing ceremony for the Olympics stinking hot. It's almost like the French organised this. You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to think about that. Jeremy, mate, this has been... Go ahead, please. They're looking at that way. All right, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, if you can, like to any other Olympians and Paralympians out there, if you get the opportunity to be able to do an opening and or a closing, 100%.
I love hearing that because I've always been that person who like whenever you see like how the swimmers will never go to an opening ceremony because they get up early. I would literally be like, fuck it, I'll sleep on an hour. I don't care. I'm going to that opening ceremony.
Yeah, like there's certain times where you're there to do a job as well.
Yeah.
But if it allows, and it did for us, we looked at the schedule. We definitely had a long, hard chat internally and thought process, but we looked at it and we're like, no, there's plenty of time here to recover, and get up and go. So I think if it was one more day closer, I probably would have said no. But because I had the ability that I had a full day afterwards, then because I think opening ceremony is Wednesday night, I had Thursday to train, Friday was then course for mills, and then Saturday, and then Sunday was race day. So there was still plenty of time in between. But yeah, if you do have the opportunity,
do it.
Like I sit here, I'm like, I'm so glad I did it. So yeah, that'd be if you can make it, yeah, do it.
I just sincerely hope by the time you're in Brisbane at your third Paralympics, they have a stadium to do it in.
Hopefully.
We'll keep an eye on that. Jeremy, mate, this has seriously been such a pleasure and an honour to learn about your journey and everything else in between. If people want to follow your journey, Instagram, TikTok, social media, I mean, the blog, tag the blog. The blog's fantastic. Tag whatever you want.
Yeah, so I guess Instagram's probably my main form. So Jezza_Peacock. I have to check that.
I think I've got it open here. I think, it is Jezza_Peacock. That's it.
Jezza_Peacock. So that's, Instagram's pretty much where I go most of the time. The blog, which is, there's
a link on your Instagram. If people find you on Instagram, there's a direct link on the profile.
The blog goes through sort of the 4 months lead up into the games. I sort of started that to, I guess, stop repeating myself to everyone, especially in a time where I was wanting to be 100% focused on what I was doing. So I was just saying to people, look, if you want to find out anything that I'm willing to share or getting questions, go to the blog. So yeah, in that blog goes through what I was training, what I was just going through in the lead up to the games. So yeah, Instagram and the blog is sort of how you can follow the journey.
Very much worth a read on the blog. It's very, very interesting. I can see the picture here. You're not wrong, and the amazing timing of that Air Force above the Phryge.
Yeah.
That might be the best Phryge photo I have ever seen. That is fantastic. It's almost like the planes are coming out of Phryge. They're like,
Yeah.
Air Force.
Like, let's just say thank God for live photo.
Yes.
Because I think the original one was just a little bit too early. So yeah, once I had live photo, bang, got perfect shot, done.
Thanks, Steve Jobs, for creating live photo, basically, with that. Jeremy, again, pleasure, mate, and we'll definitely do this again. We'll get you in the lead up to LA, after LA, gold medals around your neck, whatever it may be, but we'll definitely get you back on at some point again in the future.
Thanks very much, man. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, just hearing the story and some of the cool things that happen behind the scenes at the Paralympics.